Welcome to the SJSU Green Campus Podcast, a podcast about a range of sustainability and social issues that impact the SJSU campus and the broader community, hosted by the student interns from the San Jose State University Office of Sustainability.
My name is Shivangi. My pronouns are she, her.
And my name is Griselle, and my pronouns are she, her.
Today, we will be introducing Matt Sandy. Matt Sandy is an investigative journalist, entrepreneur, and pioneer for the natural world. Inspired by his time as a foreign correspondent in South America and trips to the Amazon rainforest, Matt Sandy created Seedlings, an email newsletter built to help people connect and come together to improve the world.
Hi, Matt. How are you doing today?
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here.
So we'll go ahead and jump in right into this podcast. Can you give us a little background of Seedlings and how it started?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I started my career as a journalist, and before long, I ended up in South America, in Brazil, in particular, and a lot of my work was around the Amazon rainforest, which is obviously a remarkable place to visit, and a very important, although very emotional, story to cover, given its sort of significance for everything potentially going forward. And the thing was, we'd always do these big, these big reports for Time and the New York Times or whoever, and we'd always get the same response. We'd always get friends reaching out on social media or by email or other means. And they'd always ask the same question, which is, what can I do? What can I do about this? What makes this sort of, relevant for me? What can I actually take that makes a difference? And this became the sort of the spark, I guess, for Seedlings, because we sort of realized there's obviously a tremendous amount that you can do, and there's a lot of stuff in many spheres sort of out there. But clearly there was something missing, perhaps sort of the glue, or the path or the journey, that takes, a lot more people along the journey of becoming truly aware, truly connected, truly activated, when it comes to going green. And going green could mean, a million different things, basically.
Yeah.
But that was basically the core of the idea before we sort of started looking at Seedlings and started looking at, what it is we were going to create, and who exactly we're going to create it for. But the idea that at this precise point in time, there might be something different and interesting to be done that helps more people sort of, start to take the steps on that journey.
And what can you tell us about eco-anxiety? I know a lot of us can feel like we don't really know what to do and how we can help. So what is something we can do about that? And how can we turn that anxiety into excitement when we're trying to be more eco-conscious?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, because I think one of the things that sort of you notice as you sort of come into this space is that you see, there's a relatively, I guess, sort of small number of people, whether you're talking about society in general or whether you're talking about a college campus, relatively sort of small number of people who are sort of highly engaged, as I'm sure you two are, with these sort of topics, and highly active around them. And then there's a much larger group of people, again, both in society and on campuses, who are very well intentioned, but are much less sort of activated in practice. And I think emotion is a tremendous amount to do with it, and I think anxiety in particular, because I think, as humans, we, on almost sort of animal level, we react to stimulus and stimuli, either to move towards what we find pleasurable or to move away from what we find painful, and that's deeply instinctive. And I think that the thing about environment, and particularly the thing about climate, is that a lot of people have developed an aversion in response. They've they're concerned, they care, they're good people, but they don't get involved simply because often, first encounter with it, it doesn't need to be, but often it's painful. It's psychologically painful. And so the question is then, how can we create something that doesn't that fundamentally is true to who we are and how the world is at the moment and what the world needs, which doesn't sort of create that response, that creates a very different sort of emotional paradigm, and hopefully because of that, really helps us help more people along that journey from some sort of awareness, content, to connection, to action, and that can obviously mean a myriad of things, from thinking about how you can make your career green, to thinking about how to live sustainably, to becoming a beacon for your friends and family. It can mean many things, but like, what is it that actually, what is it we can create that people actually are attracted to and want, that sort of helps people become who they most want to be, in that respect. And as you say, therefore turns that sort of underlying tension, anxiety, whatever it might be, into excitement and action.
So as kind of like the founder of Seedlings, and you did mention kind of like going green and living sustainably, what do you think would be some tips for the audience of going green and living sustainably in a sense? Especially for students. I think for students, you can totally incorporate that into your everyday lives. So how would you go about, I guess, influencing the students to become more aware in a sense?
I mean, I think it's really interesting, and I think one of the things obviously that we learn is that being able to sort of live sustainably depends on several things, right? It depends on your immediate surroundings, and depends on the opportunities available to you there. And it also depends to an extent on resources, right? On what is sort of available to you in that respect. And so it's not like, and I think at worst, the sort of sustainable living thing, it becomes, it can be seen, it's seen as about perfection, or about competition, or about anything like that, which I think is really damaging, and it's us letting sort of ego get in the way of reality and doing what we can. And I think there's also, I mean, fundamentally, I think the first step is awareness, right? Where we understand like what is what might be harmful, what might be more beneficial, and I think certainly in terms of, I would always like encourage people to think about things like money in particular, like where we put our money and the way we spend our money is like really potent element of where we actually have a degree of power in the society. But I mean, there's so many things, and I think it's often a lot about, like, if you go to a particular place, you realize sort of the level of like awareness that might be there. For example, on a particular college campus, you go to some campuses and there's a whole load of like plant-based, vegan food options, and there's a whole load of public transport, and there's a whole load of stuff. And you go to other places, and and it's pretty much impossible, as in if you wanted to say make those choices about eating more plant-based food, or driving less, it's pretty much impossible to do it. And so the last thing I think any of us should say is like to make it a matter of to make it anything other than the choice that you choose and you want to do, if it's possible, if it feels right for you, and if it's realistic for you in that moment. And I think what I would say is that it is the sort of sustainable living thing is one piece of the puzzle, right? And I think it's really important because it makes it relevant to us, and it makes it real to our lives. But it's not something that there should ever be, I think, like there should ever be like guilt around.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned a lot about college campuses and students, and I was wondering how we can get more involved with Seedlings, and what can we do to help push sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. I think well, to explain a little more about Seedlings. Seedlings has been on a we've been on a journey ourselves as regards what we create and how we create it. And so in the first instance, we created, essentially a media company. We had this email newsletter and various other elements. And the idea was to be the morning email for, everyone who wants to think and live, and think and live more sustainably. And we sort of, we noticed very early on that there was a lot of enthusiasm for what we're doing for the brand we were creating on college campuses. So Seedlings sort of evolved beyond that to be, rather than it be just us that was creating content, hosting events, running challenges, whatever it might be, from afar, to the idea that we could sort of connect with and empower local communities. And I think colleges are definitely the right choice for that. I think it's a stage of people's lives where they're very open to new ideas. It's a stage where people have time and willingness to get involved in sort of student activities. And so that's been something we've been experimenting with on a few different campuses around the US since January, and we've got a few more coming online this coming semester, which is really interesting. And so we're always looking for people to get involved in the campus chapters. We typically have a leader, a growth lead, a content lead, a social lead, an events lead, and a partnerships lead. And there's a lot more sort of chance to get involved. And so really it's us sort of mentoring the chapters in terms of how to get involved and how to really have an impact there. But beyond that, obviously not everyone wants to sort of get involved in something as sort of, as big a commitment as that. Our vision really for Seedlings is much in the future. It's much more of a network. So I feel like we understand a lot more now about what we're building and where we're going towards, and we really want to create a network. So not only can any sort of, at the moment, any student on our target campuses sort of plug in, or indeed come, if they're very ambitious, come to us and say they want to set something up on their own campus. But we want to create something that maintains this sort of real sort of human element, this community element of this sort of different sort of locales, but also really creates a network between, for people to be able to create a profile and to connect with other people. And the glue we hope will sort of hold all this together fundamentally is the idea that everyone who is taking some sort of positive step, and at this point we define it very, very broadly, positive step, to help build a sustainable future, should be celebrated and rewarded for that. And so fundamentally what we're sort of trying to build at this point is a platform whereby if you volunteer for the sustainability office, if you volunteer for a nonprofit, if you do a challenge with a sustainable brand on campus, if you create content around the topic, whatever it might be, then you fundamentally gain points, you gain sort of status rewards on the system, on the platform. And we're looking at how can we therefore build a network that everyone can plug into, not only obviously us and not only students, but student organizations, nonprofits, brands, etc. And how can we align the sort of desire, the genuine desire we feel is there among a lot of people, maybe who haven't taken a lot of action yet, to really be rewarded in all kinds of ways for Seedlings means.
You did mention that Seedlings is at multiple universities now. What universities have connected with Seedlings now that you have?
Okay, so we started, the very first university when we had where we sort of experimented with ambassadors and chapters was UC Berkeley.
Okay.
And we now have, and then we expanded to San Diego State and Kent State last semester. We've got various ones coming online this coming semester, including UCSB, UC Davis, Michigan State, Georgia State,
Oh, wow.
Central Florida. So yeah, it's really fun. It's really amazing. Obviously, the hope is to build a big network. Like, for example, her campus has chapters everywhere, and we can be doing some of the same sort of stuff in terms of inspiring people to create content, but also also lots more in terms of actually sort of creating a network that it's more than the sum of its parts and helps to drive action. We need to, I mean, part of the reason we're moving towards sort of keeping the community but having this sort of building a tech platform around it is that obviously, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work with all the different communities, and we have to work how that's going to be scalable. But certainly at this point, we're having a lot of fun. And if anyone's interested in sort of getting involved on those campuses or setting up a chapter in San Jose or anywhere else,
I definitely feel like we could probably be the next university to team up with Seedlings. I think that would be great. Having another platform for students to have more resources to, and then just connecting with other people among sustainability is kind of what our office always tries to offer the students. And not a lot of people know sometimes about the Resource Center at San Jose State, about the Office of Sustainability. So I think just like expanding that network with other universities would be a really great way to expand our office as well.
I mean, I think it's one of the key questions, right? There's so much, well, in the broadest sense, there's so much out there that's just competing for everyone's attention. Yeah. And so in terms of, for example, you guys as a sustainability officer, as a student organization, you're doing some great stuff, and you want the things that you need, right? You want to make sure you're reaching lots of students and getting students involved, having impact that way. And so the question is, how can we? And I think it's taken us a little while to work this out, because at first we arrived for campuses and it was great, but there was a lot of stuff going on already. So like, we need to work out as a network what we can create and provide that is a service to sort of all the great initiatives that already exist. And if we can create something that you guys are really excited to plug into, whether that's to connect to other campuses or whether that's because you can connect to other people on your own campus or whatever it might be, it's more of a platform or whatever it might be. I think that would be so exciting, right?
Yeah, I think it is great. Well, thank you so much, Matt. Was there anything else you'd like to share with the students or the audience of the SJSU Green Campus podcast?
No, I don't think so. I think that's been really great. Yeah, if anyone's interested, check us out at seedlings.media, and we can chat.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this episode of the SJSU Green Campus podcast. It's a podcast by the San Jose State University Office of Sustainability. To learn more about the topics discussed today in today's show, check out our description below, finding links to a variety of resources mentioned in this episode. Special thanks to our special guest, Matt, for joining us today. Follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SJSU Green Campus Podcast to stay connected. For more information about the SJSU Office of Sustainability, make sure to check out our website. Thank you so much for joining us with us today. Hopefully we get to connect more in the future with Seedlings, and hopefully SJSU Office of Sustainability can create more resources for students as well.
Excellent, that'd be brilliant. And thank you so much for having me.